this is when I've convinced myself or believed that I've been working alongside the CIA or the government. And this has actually been one that's always kind of constantly bubbled up over the last 12 years. In fact, it was something that last week I was trying to have to fight to push back down. And the first time it ever happened, I was convinced that I was getting secret messages from license plates and from postcodes and all this stuff. And I suppose in the process of trying to figure out who potentially would be sending these codes, for some reason I decided to default to Secret Service. And I think that that's quite a common one for most people as well, actually. Um, and it was also a very similar experience to John Nash, if you've seen the Beautiful Mind film, because I believed what I was doing was decoding social constructs that were going to allow me to find out like the ultimate purpose of reality, and that the license plates were giving me coordinated actions to do in the society that I was in and fulfill responsibilities and stuff like that. And then I would go back and I would communicate with the Secret Service through me typing in secret messages in my phone and searches on Google. Um, and then effectively what I would do is I would wait to see more license plates, or I would wait to see more information from what was going on around me, like in the postcodes and stuff like that. And then when the first time that happened, I was relatively young. I was in my early 20s, probably around 22 to 24. That really seriously went on, and that's what I thought I was doing, for that time. But then as that went on and I started to build more of that, it kind of shifted into more of like, well, now I'm part of that investigation of what I've been doing, and now they're probably going to want to cut me loose because what proof have I got of any of this, what's happened? And so it became a more dark and twisted version. And I say with delusions, I call them parallel architectures. So imagine, and this is a motivational system for you to prevent you from creating delusions, is that when you create a delusion that's good, at the same time it creates a delusion that's bad. Okay. And so it's parallel architecture, or symmetrical architecture, if you like. Asymmetrical, I don't know what you'd call it, but parallel architecture is what I like. And so the parallel architecture to all that work that I was doing for the government, the CIA, was that now they were going to kill me, and that I wasn't actually, I was giving all of that to the enemy, and that now I don't know who I was sending all that to. And so that then began a different spiral. And because I've, again, dealt with all this without medication, I often responded to that by just disappearing into my room for like months on end and taping up all the windows and, isolating until I could kind of get over myself and work my way through the delusions. Is because that's what I found with like all psychotic episodes and delusions, is if you can think your way out of them and then bravely confront it, whatever it is, if you keep on doing that, eventually it does subside. The medication's incredible, because the medication, if I could go back in time and treat myself, I would take the medication for the psychotic episodes and then do all the work to understanding what I'm suffering from whilst on medication, so that I could come off of it finally. But I didn't do that because I was terrified of doctors. I was convinced they were part of the delusion and that they were just going to jab me with something. So I suffered alone, and that's in my story. But I effectively then just started running away, and trying to run from the government and run from the CIA and delete all my phones, change my devices all the time, which was a bit of a nightmare for me. But yeah, eventually I got out of that delusion. And I think one of the main reasons it happens now is that in the intense isolation, if you've read my essay or you've looked at my other videos on genetic susceptibility, because I'm genetically susceptible to manifesting alternate realities through hallucinations, and because I'm experiencing intense loneliness and isolation through maybe socially isolating factors and all this stuff and perceivable factors, I'm in a prime location to want to attach to something like that, but then also have the ability to hallucinate something like that. So in reality, what I was doing, I believe, is having a deep desire to be purposeful and have meaning, a deep desire for that. And so my subconscious systems were allowing me to attach on to this idea that I could be working for the secret government. And then I'm effectively hallucinating all of the things that would lead me towards it. And so a lot of the time, when I see that bubbling up again, I try to tell myself they're not going to want anything to do with me. I'm just a lunatic. I'm crazy. And that's better for me to believe than it is for me to believe that I'm in some way special or that I'm needed. And so grounding myself through those words is actually very useful. And I kind of call this having a strong mind for a voice of reason. And something that I never really had was a strong voice, an inner voice. So if you think of it like this is the way I think of it, is that you've got subsystems in the brain. Freud referred to these as your sub-emotional personalities, and Jung, maybe your archetypal structures, if you like, all the way back to the origin of our species, the developments from us from little mammals or whatever. And so all of these underlying systems compete for what they want in the world. And if you don't have a strong developmental area, the prefrontal cortex, which is used to control the animal parts of your brain, which is because of my youth, maybe I didn't have that, a lot of self-control, that I wouldn't even be able to tell myself to not start believing in things that weren't good for me. And that, coupled with my genetic predisposition to generate hallucinations, was absolutely terrible. It just led to me believing I worked for the CIA and spending 2 years of my life trying to send secret communications to them through Google searches. So now that I'm a lot more wise to it, it bubbles up. Like, it bubbled up last week, but it only lasted about maybe an hour. And then I caught myself again and I was like, oh, okay, don't do that. And this is why, and explain it to myself and strengthen my reality. And then this is the final note, I think, for people, is that I really think that schizophrenics and people with psychoses and people that have lost touch with reality could be in some way the next movement or the next purpose of really strengthening our senses of reality and developing a fabric which makes sense that we can all anchor and lean upon. Something I'm very interested in because I know how useful it is as someone that's constantly been suffering from a lack of reality. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video today and have a good day.